All right, boys, this is a nosebleed perspective, and we are back with some fantasy rankings, and we're moving towards the quarterback position. So we're obviously going with PPR format. That doesn't really apply a terrible amount to quarterbacks. Some leagues do 6-point touchdowns. Some leagues do 4-point touchdowns. We like to do 4-point to keep the playing field a little bit level. Either way, this list applies to both formats, more than likely. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and just kick this thing off. We're going to only do a top 20 because it would just get a little bit ridiculous to do a top 30 for quarterbacks because obviously it's just not a lot of starters that are going to be starting in your
Don't draft a backup quarterback. There's no reason.
That's a great point. So that's why we're doing top 20. All right, boys, you guys ready?
Yep. Let's hit it.
All right, so number 20, I'll start us off. I'm going to start with Philip Rivers right here. No matter what you think of this guy, Mr. Rivers, he's always been a safety net at quarterback. For people like me who don't give a shit about quarterbacks, Philip Rivers has always been there. Last year was probably his worst year fantasy-wise. He finished number 25 overall in points per game. It was not a good year for Philip Rivers. So if you are that guy or girl who takes Philip Rivers kind of late and you just kind of like rely on him, last year probably fucked you a little bit. But this year, I think that O-line will help him out. I think that T.Y. Hilton will shine. I think that the new rookie dude, I forgot his name already, but they're going to
see.
Yeah. Michael Pittman, right?
Yep.
I think they're going to give him those options. And like I said, that O-line it's going to do wonders for him. People underestimate that O-line so much in the NFL. So give him a chance. If you're one of those people who just give a rat's ass and literally the last pick you take in your draft is a quarterback, which is someone like me more than likely, I'm not saying I trust him fully going forward, but Philip Rivers, number 20, starting this thing off for me.
All right, so I got this guy at 20 because I think he'll end up having a pretty good year, but do not draft him. Do not draft this guy. Old Danny Dimes for the Giants. And the reason I don't want to draft him is because his early schedule is freaking terrible, man. He plays the Steelers week 1, not a good matchup. The Bears, even though they're a terrible team, everybody keeps talking about that defense, that secondary is good. And San Francisco. Whoever drafts Danny Dimes is going to drop him at week 3. You're going to be able to pick this guy up. I think he ends up the rest of the season doing pretty well, but don't draft him. Pick him up week 4 if you're having quarterback issues because there on his schedule is pretty good.
All right, number 20 for me, Kirk Cousins. I love this quarterback. I think that he's a solid dude. I think that Kirk Cousins can ball the fuck out. But he lost Stephon Diggs this year. So he lost his number 1 wide receiver. Obviously, Adam Thielen's a solid guy. He can catch the ball. But I think if Dalvin Cook can stay healthy this year, they're going to run the ball a little bit more because they did lose that heavy wide receiver. And then Kirk Cousins obviously just has flaws. But I still think that he's better than the worst 10 quarterbacks in the league or worst 12 quarterbacks in the league. So Kirk Cousins number 20.
Damn, no love for Kirk, huh? Okay.
I felt like that was love putting him in the top 20.
Yeah, me too. I feel like you gave him a lot of respect.
Hey, look out for Captain Kirk. We'll talk about him in a minute. All right, so number 19, this is where I do have Mr. Daniel Dimes himself. Look, he's a quarterback who I wanted to put a lot higher this year. I was a big believer in him. You can ask these guys. I thought he was going to be – he has a good build. I think he has everything it takes to be a quarterback. But like you said, Gibby, that strength of schedule is going to hurt him. Nate Solder opting out of the 2020 season is going to hurt him. And like I said, that O-line is just super questionable. He showed a lot of flashes last year, being a solid fantasy quarterback, especially people who don't give a shit too much about quarterbacks. You would be okay with him being your QB1. And he did finish number 16 overall in points per game with Mr. Timothy Brady himself. So if he's available and you're one of those very, very last rounds, and if you are a person who drafts a backup quarterback, which a lot of people do, look out for Danny Dimes. If because he could, turn it on this year. But he's who I have at 19 for now.
So at 19, I got Ryan Tannehill. He was comeback player of the year last year, but guess what? That's worth 0 fantasy points, so it doesn't really matter. If he can get back to his days in Miami where he was mobile and he actually got some rushing yards, because in his early part of his career, like, he wasn't that good, but his fantasy value was there because of rushing yards. They're just worth so much more than passing. And when a quarterback can get both, it's very valuable. But outside of that, he's just not worth the risk for me to even consider drafting. But there's a little bit of upside there.
But you're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance.
There's a chance. All right, so number 19. Hopefully this is a dude that you guys are actually considering. I'm not sure if he's actually going to be, though. I got Drew Lock. I think that Drew Lock is going to actually be a decent quarterback this season. I think that between Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy and just the great backfield that they have on that team, Drew Lock is actually going to end up being a dynamic quarterback in the NFL, and that he's going to be a top 20 quarterback. Denver, Drew Lock, number 19.
Excuse you.
Thank you. So Mr. Lock breaks into the top 20.
Top 20, yeah.
I think he's a possible top 20 quarterback. He didn't make my list.
I would not draft him. By no means am I drafting Drew Lock whatsoever. Even as a backup, well, I wouldn't draft backup quarterback, but even if week 1 I'm looking to pull a backup quarterback off of waivers, I wouldn't probably pull Drew Lock. But I just think that after a 17-week season, Drew Lock is going to have put up numbers that are worthy of being in the top 20.
Okay.
19 specifically.
It's respectable. I think he could be a top 20 quarterback as a guy you want on your team, like a top in that kind of perspective. But I don't have him in my top 20, but I can respect it. Like I said, number 18 is where I put old Ben Roethlisberger, Big Ben. Look, very skeptical of him, obviously coming off this surgery. But if you've ever had Ben Roethlisberger on your team, what has he done? All he's done is produced some monster fucking games. So I'm honestly, I don't know if I would steep this low as somebody who I would put as my QB1. I think I would. Yeah. So just look out for him to produce this year. I think he has a lot to prove. He's lost some weight. Dude's getting in shape. Big Ben's just a fantasy quarterback that gives his receivers a chance. So I'm all right with him possibly being my QB1. I mean, we're talking in terms of a 12-man league, just for anyone listening. So, and I am very much someone who doesn't give a single shit who's playing quarterback. I drafted Patrick Mahomes with my very single last pick his rookie year. I mean, or no, not rookie year.
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago, whatever. When no one really knew what he was going to produce. And all he
50 touchdowns.
Yeah, that was it was the best pick of my life. I was like, fuck it, I'll just take this guy. He's a starting quarterback. I'll just go with him. I asked Gibby, he was like, yeah, he's huge boom, huge bust. I was like, it's good enough for me. So yeah, that's what Ben Roethlisberger is to me this year going forward. So
nice. So he's going in the very first pick of the 12th round. So you could definitely stack your team up around him. I'm going to go with the guy who's going the very first pick in the 14th round, and Jared Goff. His offense just wasn't the same last year. He only had 22 touchdowns, and that's just something you kind of got to sit here with that 4 to 6 point league difference. Make sure you're always checking your league rules because it'll make or break your team. Even though he had the most pass attempts last year, so that's a good thing to look at for fantasy. Whether that was because they were playing behind or that's just what Sean McVay wants. Pass attempts lead to more opportunities, so the ceiling is there. But I think the best days of Jared Goff's fantasy might be behind him.
Yeah. So at number 18, I've got a dude that I don't trust at all, Scam Newton. I think that he was a good pickup for the New England Patriots. However, I don't know if he's the solution for the New England Patriots. And I really honestly wouldn't be surprised if halfway through the season, Jarrett Stidham becomes the starting quarterback. Just because of the team, obviously, we know the wide receivers. N'Keal Harry, WR1, Julian Edelman, WR2, slot maybe. Scam obviously doesn't have the greatest dudes to throw the ball to. And then a year off, a lot of injuries, Bill Belichick system. No, we don't know what we're going to see out of Cam Newton when he goes to New England. So I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and put him in the top 20 because obviously the guy has shown that he can ball out and he can play football. So I felt like he deserved to be on this list. But at the same time, I just don't know if he's the kind of dude that I would have on my fantasy football team because I don't know if he's actually going to produce this year or if he's going to end up being the starter the entire season. But the games that he is starting, I think that he's gonna move that ball and he's gonna make it happen. And if he can't pass it, he's gonna run it. So there's a lot of upside, especially if you're in a league where it's like 4 points for a passing touchdown, but 6 points for a rushing touchdown, something like that. Then Cam could be your guy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, New England, man, it's an interesting situation all around. So. All right, so number 17. It's where I have Jared Goff. Gibby just had him at 18, but he did finish outside the top 20 last year in points per game, even though you talked about those pass attempts. But I just don't see that happening again with that offensive scheme that they run. He has a lot of people undervalue his arm talent, and I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible, but he has too good of arm talent, and that O-line is going to be slightly better next year. I think I've talked about it in previous episodes, but Woods and Kupp are going to just shine this year. Higbee is an up-and-coming tight end. He's going to be I don't want to spoil any tight end episodes, but Tyler Higbee is going to be a guy who's in fantasy, who's going to he's going to win you some games. So I just like them to change their offense a little bit, and I think that offensive line gets a little better, which he needs that time. So I have him at 17. I'm not necessarily absolutely okay with him being my starter, but if it happens that way in my draft, I'll live with it. So
yeah, for sure. So at 17, at this point, if you're taking a quarterback, whether because it's a backup or you're in a league where someone takes a quarterback in the first round, the fifth round, and the 10th round, that's just kind of something you got to keep out for. If you're playing with a bunch of noobs that just know quarterbacks, they're going to take too early. It's just going to happen. So make sure you know your league. I'm going with Baker Mayfield here because there's no reason if you're going to take a guy this late, why not take a guy with a huge ceiling? He really does. Now, his floor is super, super, super low as well, because this could be a super run-heavy team with a new coaching staff and everything. But if you're taking a guy this late, take a shot on Baker. He's got one of the best wide receivers in the league and a bunch of weapons around him.
I'm excited for whenever I finally talk about Baker. So at 17, I got Danny Dimes. Obviously you guys have already talked about him. And everything that you guys have said about him is true. He's just one of those quarterbacks that he could produce, he could not produce. We don't know what we're going to get. The Giants franchise is obviously not a contender at this time, but I think that this dude has a potential to produce some serious numbers. And of course, depending on the league, whether it's 4 points or 6 points per touchdown, Danny Dimes could be a solid quarterback to have on your team. He's proven that he doesn't see ghosts, and he can hit his wide receivers. So, Danny Dimes, 17.
He's pretty mobile too, honestly. I mean, you watch him last year. He knows when to scramble. I think he's a smart kid. A lot of people were not big on him coming out of Duke at the number 6 pick, I think he was. I just think the other factors involved with that organization hold him back a little bit, because I think if he's in the right situation, he could possibly be a top 10 fantasy quarterback. But Danny Dimes in New York, man. I mean, the running game, Saquon back there, it's super strong, obviously. But if he goes down,
he's one of those dudes that he could be a Josh Allen, in my opinion. He he's not as fast and he doesn't have as strong of an arm, but like he has a similar skill set as Josh Allen, and so like they're very similar players. So I do see how like he can be mobile, but what they're asking out of the quarterbacks in the New York Giants franchise is not a mobile quarterback. Obviously, he took over for Eli, who could not move, and he doesn't have as strong of an arm as Josh, but Danny Dimes is definitely a solid contender and a solid possible backup, possible starter.
Yeah, I mean, you got to watch, you got to look out for these guys who are not going to go as a starter in your fantasy league, because they're guys who could possibly win you your leagues. Because if you can get those skill position, wide receiver, running back, tight end positions filled, and you see a quarterback who has potential, it's somebody who could boost your fantasy team. But Danny Dimes, I don't know if he has it with the situation he's in, but
yeah, you don't need a sexy name quarterback. You just need a dude that's going to put up 18 to 21 points a week. That's it.
Unless you're in one of those leagues, like a standard league 2 changes the game. If you're in a standard league, your wide receivers, your running backs are not getting as many points. And especially if you're in a standard league with 6-point touchdowns as a quarterback, this changes everything. But we're in PPR, 12-team, 4-point-ish, touchdown.
Yeah.
So anyway, going on to number 16. It's where I put Captain Kirk. Kirk Cousins. Yeah, Kirk Cousins made my list. I think the value of his upside is just so good in fantasy. Maybe last year's Stephon Diggs kind of that whole drama with the wide receivers the first few weeks of the season threw him off a little bit. But he came in and he played good. He had a prime time. Kirk was born on the I think it was a Thursday night game or something. Yeah, finally, But if he can just focus on Thielen, Kevin Rudolph, that rookie, Justin Jefferson, I think he can definitely – and, hey, Dalvin Cook has to be healthy for this to come true. Dalvin Cook has to be a threat in the running game before Kirk Cousins is a top 16, 15 quarterback fantasy-wise. But I do like it. The chances of somebody going down, I would never wish it on anyone, are pretty rare-ish. So I don't see Dalvin Cook just like going down week 2, 3. So look out for Kirk Cousins, man. A lot of people probably won't reach to get him at all. So if he falls to you and you have good role players, take him. Why not? I mean, especially if you can get another quarterback in the very, very last round or something like that, like one of the dudes we've talked about, or another guy. So somebody like Baker, Gardner Minshew or something. Why not like just handcuff somebody like that? So that's why I have him here.
All right. Well, as you said, why not like Gardner Minshew? That's who I have at 16. Don't sleep on Minshew Nation. This dude's pretty damn good. Like, it surprises me, the system he came from in college. I thought it was a college-only system. I didn't think he would pan out very well. But he had 5 top 12 finishes last year, which are QB1 finishes. So, and, they're finally sold on him, at the middle of the year when old Richard came back. They kind of took him out a few games and put him back in. That's going to mess with anyone's confidence or anything. But when he was the guy and he knew he was the guy, he could ball out. He's got some pretty decent wide receivers over there. And, I wouldn't be too upset if he was my guy if I had a good team.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew, he finished QB 19 last year in points per game, the games he played. So, I mean, the situation he's in does not help him at all, obviously.
No.
But I mean, somebody who produces like that, and they're probably somebody who's an organization is going to trust a little bit more going forward. Look out for him to put up maybe bigger numbers. He was my honorable mention at number 21 this year. So,
yeah, he was definitely my honorable mention too. So 16, this is probably super disrespectful to this dude. But Carson Wentz, I'm not sold on the guy yet. I mean, he's obviously, when he's healthy, I guess he's an all right quarterback. But the Philadelphia Eagles apparently don't believe in wide receivers. And then Marquise, obviously, we talked about it in a previous episode where he opted out because of COVID. So The Philadelphia Eagles don't have a reliable wide receiver core, and then Carson Wentz is not a reliable, healthy quarterback. We've seen it in multiple seasons now. So to trust the guy to be your QB1 is like putting I don't even know, like putting faith in the fact that like taxes might go away sometime. Like it's just it's not something that you can actually believe in. And I don't believe in Carson Wentz because I foresee the dude between weeks 8 and 11 getting injured, and then like that's just gonna be it. And so for you to waste a draft pick on this guy, I would not. This dude, even if he's available in round 11, I'm still not taking him because I just don't believe in his ligaments and his joints and his muscles. I just don't believe in the guy. I think that North Dakota State made him a soft dude, and he's just never going to be a quarterback that can play 16 games, make it to the playoffs, and play all of the playoff games. He's just not healthy. He has terrible DNA or terrible genes. I don't know what it is, but he's weak. Not a good quarterback. Not a healthy quarterback.
Old glass jaw, huh?
Exactly. He's getting
Glassy.
knocked out. Yeah. Glass everything.
I mean,
he's a mirror house. He's a house made of glass.
It's hard to it's hard to argue with you. I'm not gonna lie, from my perspective at least, because he's not been healthy and he's not been a quarterback who's been there, and that's what you need in your fantasy league is somebody who can be consistent at least. So
yeah, I can't start a quarterback worrying if he's gonna break everything that week. Like like if I get 4 points out of the quarterback because like he went down in the first quarter, I'm gonna lose my mind. So I'm not gonna draft a quarterback who's probably gonna get hurt his first sack.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. He's such a talent, so but it's tough to put him in a safe position. So number 15 is where I put Matt Ryan, and I didn't want to put him so low, but at the same time, you have to put him here. So honestly, from this point forward, I think number 16 and above, for a person like me, I'm super cool with him being my QB1. I don't care about anybody else who we name on this list from the last pick with Kirk Cousins going forward. I don't care if they're my quarterback. I'm perfectly fine with it. I don't care. They're going to be somewhat consistent. Their dudes have been, that have proven themselves. I'm not interested in any rookies that came out this year. So I'm all right with it. But number 15, I put Matt Ryan. A couple words, phrases. Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley. They're going to make themselves available. Yeah. They're going to like alone. If Julio isn't on this team, I don't think Matt Ryan is a top 20 quarterback in my eyes. He's getting old. He's a shelter of his old self. He did have an MVP season, but I don't see that ever coming close to happening again. I just, with Todd Gurley, I think it opens up a couple things, possibly definitely the screen game, and maybe because Devontae Freeman has not been a threat since the Super Bowl. He has not. Like when he was the running back, I'd say about 3 years ago, Devontae Freeman was like a top 5 pick in fantasy drafts. He was. And, but he's just, I think last year he probably went like 4th, 5th round or something. Like it's just people aren't interested in him anymore. So Todd Gurley probably helps that a little bit. If Matt Ryan falls to me, I'll take him as my quarterback. But just because Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, baby. I mean, that receiving core is going to get you some points no matter who your quarterback is in the National Football League. So I put him here, but that's who I have at 15.
Yeah. So at 15, I got Big Ben. He's been talked about. The case is made. Is he going to come back healthy? Is he not going to? If he does come back healthy, you could win your league with him. You really could. But if he doesn't, as long as you take him late enough, it's not going to hurt your team. You just kind of toss him, and then you pick up a backup running back or handcuff or something on the waiver wire and kind of move on. So if you're taking a quarterback late, grab Big Ben. If he doesn't pan out, cut him.
Yep. Same page. Big Ben, number 15, for the exact same reasons. The dude's just – he can produce, but he can't produce. Obviously, Juju Smith-Schuster is a questionable wide receiver. We've talked about it in the past. We don't know if he was a good wide receiver because he was paired up with AB, or if he doesn't deserve to be a WR1, blah, blah, blah. We don't know. The wide receiver core of this team is not terrible, but also not like a dynamic 1-2 punch like Lodge was talking about with Matt Ryan's, Calvin Ridley, and Julio Jones. But I think Ben has targets on this team and he can produce. We just don't know if the surgery that he's coming off of is going to make him the quarterback that he was, or if he's going to be the shell of the man that he used to be.
Yeah, I mean, you can't deny his fantasy value in the past. I mean, he's just been, no matter if you love him, like him, if you like the Steelers or you hate the Steelers, like Big Ben has been a top quarterback in fantasy. You're okay with having on your team. So
yeah, because he's even had seasons where he throws a lot of picks, but that's because he's throwing the ball 40, 50 times a game. So, like, when you're throwing the ball that much, you can't expect the dude to not throw picks, but at the same time, he's throwing touchdowns. So you gotta forgive it where it is.
Speaking of picks, interceptions and such, turnovers, it saddens me to put this man at my number 14 position in the quarterback rankings, but I put Cam Newton here. I think that Cam is on a mission this year. Hopefully he can be any type of better than he was last year in the 2 games he played, because he was awful to watch. It was atrocious to just watch him play football last year in those couple games that he did play. He was hurt allegedly, but I do like him in this offense. I think he can actually, I just think he could boost himself, and exploit the talents of N'Keal Harry. I think he has a safe option in Julian Edelman. And Bill Belichick's just a mastermind. He's going to find a way to exploit this dude's best talents. So look out for Cam Newton. Maybe get some rushing yards on your team. Maybe get a couple of rushing touchdowns throughout the year. And I just like him at number 14 here just because he's Cam Newton. When he's healthy, he's been like a top 10 quarterback for sure. I mean, I think Gibby's taking him every year. Just because he doesn't love Cam Newton, but he's taking him. So last year did not pan out for you, but that's okay. I mean, he got hurt or he's been hurt, but yeah, he's my number 14 quarterback. I'm all right with him.
I got Cam at 14 as well, and this is a good time to talk about biases. So I had Cam Newton pretty much win me a league one year, and I just keep taking this damn guy and just hoping that magic comes back with them goal line rushing touchdowns. He's coming off 3 surgeries this year. He had 1 on his foot and 2 on his shoulder. So that alone is going to give you some question marks of how he's going to come back. But the Brainiacs up in New England are not going to take chances on a guy unless they know. It wasn't a big risk. There wasn't a lot of salary cap, but they didn't have a lot of salary. So with everything, Logson said, I don't think the reward is as high as some of these other guys we just talked about. And I think the risk is even higher, but it's hard not to think Cam Newton won't be successful after all the disrespect he got this offseason and the great system that he's in.
All right, so I feel like this pack of quarterbacks that at least I'm about to talk about is partially disrespectful, but also partially like knowing when age plays a role in their position. And I might be disrespectful here, but noodle arm Drew Brees, number 14. The man, I mean, he's got the best wide receiver in the NFL. Michael Thomas obviously is a beast, and the dude's going to catch the ball whenever Drew Brees throws the ball to him. It was proven last year. It's been proven in the past. Drew Brees has the best wide receiver in the NFL. However, if you need to take a quarterback who is over the age of 40, you should not be doing it in any early rounds. And I would not take Drew Brees. I would not take Drew Brees in the first half of the draft because the dude he's old. He could get crushed by Aaron Donald, crushed by Myles Garrett, crushed by Joey Bosa, and just absolutely ruin his season for him. So I love Drew. I think he's obviously a Hall of Fame quarterback, but right now it's just not the time to be taking Drew Brees in the early round. If you're in a 12-man league, he's my 14 quarterback, which obviously isn't the worst, but isn't the best. I just don't believe in him right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not taking Drew Brees super early. And Drew Brees is a person who's going to be taken within the first 5-6 rounds because of his name.
Exactly.
He's just going to. I don't care who listens to this. I don't care what league you're in. There's going to be one guy who is like, damn, Drew Brees. And then, like, if you see like Lamar or Patrick Mahomes being taken, they're going to be like, oh my God, the next best thing is Drew Brees. But they have not watched him play, and he did not play a lot of games last year. But I agree with you, Ish.
I feel like Drew is a quarterback that, like, someone's gonna panic. They're gonna have like a mid 4th round pick and not know what to do, and they're gonna end up taking him.
Yep.
And it's gonna be the flaw in their team.
Yeah. All right, so we are on number 13, correct?
Yep.
This is where I have my man, Mr. Ryan Tannehill. Look, all this man needed was a new home and a strong running game to become a legit threat as a fantasy quarterback, man. He finished number 10 last year in points per game in fantasy. Number 10, top 10. So I'm actually doing him a disservice putting him at 13. Like, just think about that. No one gives this man respect. He did get paid this offseason. So whether you think he's worth the money or he's not, he's going to be a quarterback that people are not going to reach for, and they're not going to take super early like the Drew Brees. I think he finishes, I have him at 13, but I think he has the potential to be a good quarterback and definitely a QB1 in fantasy. So, I don't need flashy quarterbacks. I just like consistency. And I think Ryan Tannehill is going to be a guy who comes out this year and just balls out a little bit, better than the guys behind him that I've listed. So he's not going to be somebody who goes early. So if you can find him within your last picks, take him. He's not a sexy pick like you guys talked about, but Ryan Tannehill, look out. A.J. Brown's on the rise. Corey Davis, just look out for that offense. Gibby hates that he lost his right tackle, Conklin, but we're gonna adapt and we're gonna move forward here. So look out. That running game with if Derrick Henry isn't the running back on that team, I don't think I put him in the top 15 or 20, honestly. But it's just gonna be downfield's gonna be open. A.J. Brown, I think, comes on this year. I love A.J. Brown, so look out for Ryan Tannehill.
All right, so for 13, I got the guy Cheech just talked about. Not much more to add. The old noodle arm racist and Drew Brees. The thing that I really hate about Drew Brees is that I know whenever it's the playoff push for fantasy that he's going to be injured. Like, Jameis Winston is there. Like, he's not going to play 3 or 4 games of the week, 3 or 4 games of the season to rest him up for the playoffs. And them are prime games that you need to win to get them playoff seeds or get into the playoffs. So for me, that's why I'm not taking Drew Brees, but I feel like I had to put him in the top 20 because he probably will put up numbers and, points per game and all that stuff, but he's not draftable for me at all.
Yeah, I actually didn't even remember that they had Jameis Winston. So that's a solid point there. I mean, like, they've got a quarterback who threw 30 touchdowns last year, obviously.
And Taysom Hill.
Interceptions. Yeah, and Taysom Hill, who's going to go in there and just do whatever he does.
Yeah.
So basically, he's not trustworthy to start games is like a big reason why you guys don't like him, right?
Yeah,
I think matchup wise he could be good. So like if you're playing Drew Brees, he's never going to be on the waiver wire though because of his name. But like in reality, he should be, and you should be able to pick him up and play him against the Jags because he's not going to put up the fantasy numbers. But people are going to have him. There's going to be a Saints fan. There's going to be some New Orleans homer who takes him in the 3rd round, and that's great. If you are a Saints fan, please join our league.
Yep,
yeah,
please.
Yeah.
Like you said, we talked about auto drafters. If it's like 3rd, 4th round, we're like, oh my God, you need a quarterback, says the simulation.
Yeah.
They're going to take Drew Brees or, somebody who's like, somewhat new or just I don't know. He's a big name. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's broken records recently, so he's going to be somebody who goes early. I'm just letting you know. I think the Nosebleed crew, obviously, now is letting you know: do not take Drew Brees as your quarterback in the first 6 to 7 rounds, please, or you will lose.
We have a highly competitive fantasy league, I think, compared to other ones that I've played in, and
for sure,
yeah, I think that all of us are just gonna be passing Drew Brees. Like Drew Brees is gonna be there in the 8th round because we're all gonna be looking at him like we know. But at number 13, this is a dude that all of us are gonna buy his jersey for. I got Matthew Stafford. Obviously, the dude can just sling touchdowns. We know this. We know that Marvin Jones is open. We know that Kenny Golladay is open. We know that the Detroit Lions can score touchdowns. However, Matthew Stafford is just starting to scare me because he's getting up there in age too. Now, we don't know what direction the Detroit Lions are going to go. So until they start to win, what is he, 30? Yeah, he's between 33 to 36 years old, I believe.
He's old. Yeah, he's getting up there.
Yeah. So I just don't know how much more gas he has in the tank. And if he's available in the 11th round and I don't have a quarterback, I'll probably take Matthew Stafford. But prior to the 11th, nah, man, he's going to continue to be passed on.
Bro, if the Lions go to the playoffs, we're ordering Matthew Stafford jerseys for the Nosebleed crew.
I might just get one anyway, just because the dude's a total bro. Like, I'm about to just get on Fanatics.com and just order one right now.
Yep. I'll get a fake one.
Yeah, me too.
There we go. Yeah, who's in Korea? Whoever is listening to this podcast in Korea, hit us up. We'll send you some money. We'll send you a little extra cash. Get us 3 Matthew Stafford jerseys.
That's right. Make a profit. All right. So number 12 is where I put Carson Wentz. I like Carson Wentz a lot. I think he has a really good talent, or he's a really talented quarterback in the league. But I just think the loss of Marquise – I've talked about this like 3 or 4 times, I feel like, in the past couple episodes. But Marquise – that's a huge loss because it's somebody who stretches the field out for him.
Yeah, he's fast.
Yeah, he's a fast dude. He's not going to be playing this year. So they're going to have to look elsewhere for something like a speedster or someone. They're just depleted at wide receiver. It's only going to get worse. They still have a couple weapons, obviously, but the Wentz injuries scare me. If he's been fully healthy his first few years, he's probably a top 6, 5, 4 quarterback, honestly, because the dude's super good. He finished number 15 in points per game last year with literally like no wide receivers. Obviously, he did get hurt a little bit, and Josh McCown came in, but it's hard to bet that these quarterbacks are going to get hurt because it's kind of rare, but it is more prone to quarterbacks who have been hurt in the past. So I just think he kind of gets a little better fantasy value-wise, and it's hard to put him anywhere outside of the top 12 for me. So he's who I have at 12 for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Nice. So for 12 for me, I got the first, in my eyes, draftable quarterback that I would 100% be okay with, and that's Matty Ice. It's just because, like Logson said, all the talent around him. The only thing that scares me is the addition of Todd Gurley, and maybe they do get back to that ground and pound game because Todd Gurley is going to be super motivated. But whenever you have Julio, Ridley, and Hayden Hurst, he's not going to be a bad quarterback play for you.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm on my quarterback disrespectful streak right now. Aaron Rodgers. He's just like this. I feel like this is where he belongs to. He's in the middle of the pack. The Green Bay Packers made the bold decision to draft a Utah quarterback, right? Utah was where Jordan Love came from.
Utah State.
Utah State, yeah.
Yeah, Utah State, sorry. Yeah. So they drafted a quarterback in the first round, so they did not give the wide receiver corps any help whatsoever. Obviously, the Packers had a mean rush game last year, which is another reason why I don't trust Aaron. Like, he's in the same league as Matthew Stafford if he's available in a late round, which he obviously won't be. Talking about Drew Brees earlier, people are going to draft this guy early because they know the name and they know that he produced 5 years ago. But the wide receiver core on the Green Bay Packers is not conducive with having a quarterback that you need to put up points. I mean, we saw it last year. Who are their quarterbacks? Who are their wide receivers? Devontae Adams, and then
Scrubs.
the
Lizard.
Martez
Allison.
Scantling and
Lizard.
Lizard, Lazard, yeah. So I mean, like, yeah. So like, you have 3 wide receivers who are literal nobodies that you could pick up from the train station or the bus station or whatever, and then you have one dude who is a solid wide receiver. So, and then Jimmy Graham was their tight end last year, who was good 7 years ago. So I feel bad for Aaron Rodgers. I feel like his legacy is just being smudged by their management team, because the dude obviously can ball and he has the arm, and we all saw and we all remember it was Packers versus Lions, the Hail Mary touchdown.
Oh, yeah.
Won the night.
Never
Yeah,
forget.
like, yeah, just a memorable game. So like, that's like the first thing that you think when you think Aaron Rodgers. But you need to just remember that the dude's ready to just chill out with Danica Patrick and just stay home instead of play football. So yeah, Aaron's just getting up there in age, and I just don't believe in him anymore.
You know, GM Ted Thompson, it's pretty much the top of the line in the Green Bay Packers organization, because it's the only publicly owned, you know, franchise in the NFL. So he's not going anywhere because he is the guy. He's not the owner, but yeah, everyone else is the owner. So the decisions that Ted Thompson makes at GM are final, and who's going to tell him otherwise?
Yeah.
The thousands of shareholders, like, I don't know. So yeah, it's interesting. Aaron Rodgers is definitely an interesting quarterback going into fantasy next year.
Yeah,
all right,
I feel like he's just gonna be a pick for the weak ones.
Yeah,
the ones that don't know.
Yeah, he's definitely going to go early for sure. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is that name. So
yeah.
All right, so number 11, right? Our last one.
Yep.
So, all right, I put Drew Brees here. You guys already talked about him a little bit. He did finish last year number 7 in points per game when he was playing. Obviously, he missed that bulk of the season with the I think it was a thumb injury or whatever the hell.
Made up.
Yeah, made up. Blah blah blah.
Broken them both. They work fine.
I just guarantee he's outside of the top 15, top 16 games last year if he plays the full 16-game schedule. You guys kind of talked about it, and I don't have anything else to say about it. Drew Brees, and you guys know my feelings on Drew Brees. I think he's definitely a Hall of Fame quarterback, but, boy, this guy is not going to get any favors from me. I'm not going to reach for him at all. People are definitely going to take him way before I even think about drafting a quarterback. So he's not on my team, but, you know, that's who I have out of respect and out of just Michael Thomas and Kamara. So,
yeah, at 11, I got same reason, Aaron Rodgers. Like everything Cheech said, it's just a name, man. And I wish he would change his name, because he used to be a fantasy god. He used to be a guy you would consider taking in the first round of a quarterback, which I don't think any quarterback you take in the first round this year. So, but I just don't see him throwing for over 4,000 yards or 35 touchdowns anymore. So he's 11th, but not drafting him.
All right. So number 11 for me, this is a dude, and this is solely because I believe that this team is going to win their division and be in the playoffs. Phillip Rivers. I think that Phillip Rivers and the Indianapolis Colts are just a team ready to go. I think that the duo between old Phil, who has an arm, and the Ghost, those two are going to they're going to lock it in. It's going to be a solid duo. Yeah, obviously a lot of people lost faith in Phillip Rivers last year. I had drafted Phillip Rivers, and it destroyed me on fantasy because I believed in the dude enough to start him every week, but every week he was putting up like 6 to 12 fantasy points because he was he was closing. It felt like he was closing his eyes and just throwing the ball. But I also had Jared Goff, so it was like my quarterbacks were Jared Goff and Phillip Rivers, and the two of them last year were just both terrible quarterbacks. So I did lose a lot of faith in both of those guys, but I think that Phillip Rivers moved to a team that has a really good O-line that's going to give him that additional time to find the open receiver. And that's why I believe that Phillip Rivers is my number 11 quarterback. I still, none of these quarterbacks that I've named, I'm drafting before the 10th round. But if we're talking 10th round, if Phillip Rivers is available, I'll probably take the chance on him just because, I believe the team that he's on is going to protect him enough to allow him to redeem himself. And he needs to feed his 19 children too. So he's going to find it in himself to be a better quarterback.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of where my team would be in the 10th round. And I'm like nope.
Difficult.
I think I would rather take another bench player. But hey, I respect it. Phillip Rivers, I think he's in a good position. I think he's in I've talked about it, the best position that you could be in as an old ass non-mobile quarterback. So
yeah, and especially thinking so in the past few picks I've talked Phillip Rivers, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger. Those are the past 5 quarterbacks I've talked about. So none of those guys have mobility whatsoever. So at this point, it's all about injuries, which Phil has not been injury prone through his entire career, and wide receiver competency, which he's got fucking T.Y. Hilton, which a lot of these other dudes, they have good wide receivers, but obviously Drew Brees has Michael Thomas, but Matthew Stafford, Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones, they can catch touchdowns, but they're not T.Y. Hilton or Michael Thomas caliber. Aaron Rodgers has Devontae Adams, but he's going to be doubled while his other guys who have brick hands can't catch the ball. So I just feel like Phillip Rivers is more likely to succeed over these other non-mobile 35-plus quarterbacks.
That's a good point. It was hard to place Phillip Rivers because I know I wanted them to put him in my top 20 because he's just such a safety net as QB. So, because he definitely likes to fling that bitch downfield.
Yeah.
But hey, we'll see. I like Rivers in Indianapolis with that O-line, like I said, but we will see. And we will also be back with our top 10 quarterback rankings very soon. You guys have anything else to add to this episode? No? All right. Well, it's been a Nosebleed Perspective. Make sure you guys smash that subscribe button. And then follow us on Spotify at A Nosebleed Perspective. And, it's been fun. Take care. We'll be back with you with some more rankings.